Welcome to Coily Crowns. I'm Ashante.
And I'm Lori, and welcome to our Queendom.
Yeah, thank you for again for tuning in. We like to welcome all our new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for everyone that has been watching so far. We appreciate you, and we hope that you will continue to watch this episode and all our future ones. If you haven't subscribed already, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And we're also on Instagram. So follow us at the Coily Crowns. That's at the Coily Crowns on Instagram. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about two films that recently came out, American Skin and One Night in Miami. And we will be honoring a legend towards the end of the show. So continue to watch and let's get started with American Skin.
Yeah. So, American Skin. I watched this last night. It stars and is directed by Nate Parker.
Mhm.
And there's a couple other folks that you'll probably recognize when you watch it. But for the first time, I've seen this Sean Paul McGee. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he plays the filmmaker within the movie, and I liked him. I mean, I thought he was great in the movie and added a lot to
He
it.
was really good. He was. So
Yeah.
give the viewers a recap of what the movie is about. And there will be spoiler alerts just so those who may not
Yeah.
have seen it yet, we'll be talking about everything.
Everything. So basically, it's about a father that is telling his story to this young filmmaker about how his son was killed by the police. And so they kind of start the movie like I was like, is this the beginning of the movie? It kind of just jumped into
Right to it.
the traffic stop on where his son died. And so it was him and his son in the car, and they were stopped by two white officers, and it ended up his son being shot by the officer who I guess thought his son had a gun, but we get into the details. And so this is like a year later that this young filmmaker comes and approaches him and is saying that he wants to film his story and learn about his son
Hmm.
in order to submit it to some festivals. And so from there, it kind of turns into a whole different agenda for the father in order to highlight and put a spotlight on what happened to his son. So
Yes.
yeah.
So, and I think when that agenda changed is when the announcement came out that they were not, the grand jury did not um, indict, or I don't know what the correct word is, but or decided to go forth with a trial with the cop that killed the son. And I think that's when things changed for that father because this is it art imitating life? We see this all the time where unfortunately some soul lose their life to the police, and usually they do not get charged.
Right.
Or if they get charged, they go through that grand jury and then they decide not to pursue the charges and go forth. So that unfortunately is typically what happens in a lot of these situations. And when that happened in the movie, I think the father really, it like something clicked into him and he had to show what needs to happen, like kind of like behind the scenes. And I think that's why he uses um the documentary maker, the student, and his crew. It's like two other people working with him in filming. So they started with interviewing people, the father, some other the family members, and he basically tricked the little boy. The boy, no, he say he's not a little boy, but he was
Yeah,
a
he's
grad student.
21. He
He
looked
was,
really young in the movie though.
yeah, he was a
Like,
student
right?
and tricked them into going to the police station, and he basically holds hostage the two cops that stopped him and the one that killed him and some other police officers, and holds his own trial in the police station. And from there it just Gets very interesting. It gets very interesting.
Yeah. So a couple things that I understand it's a movie, right? But there's things that I was like, this would never ever happen in real life,
No.
you know. But it was interesting the way how they did this scene about this man coming into the police station, kidnapping the police chief, and kind of holding a trial per se of the officer, and using the people that were basically held hostage and people that were in the jail cell as the jury. And I was just like, never gonna happen. And I had a discussion with my husband when his ex-wife called him and was like, "You just need to get out of there safely. Come home. You haven't really done anything major. Just come back. Like, I need you, you know?" And he's like, "No, I just have to do this." And I told my husband, I was like, "Listen, if I call you and you do the situation and they killed our son or our child, whatever, and you in there, I'm gonna tell you to go ahead and kill the man. You not coming out alive.
You're not coming out alive.
You either not coming out alive, or if they take you alive because of some
You going to
reason,
jail for life.
you go into jail for the rest of your life, and all of your homies, your cousin, your uncle, whoever you brought up in there with you, the filmmakers would have been going to jail. Everybody going to jail. So whatever you went in there to do, make sure you get it done because make it worth it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. So that reminds me of one of the bloggers that I follow, and I listen to her podcast, Demetria L. Lucas, and she always talks about when if something were to happen to her, and like usually in the past there's riots and or demonstrations that end up leading to some destruction of buildings and things like that. She says lives are more important than a building. It's just like don't go on TV telling people not to burn this down, not to burn that down. Like, don't say Demetria wouldn't want that, because burn it all down. If I was killed or something happened, and I'm like, you know what? Yes, that's how I feel too. So if something were to happen to me, my life was more important than some building who they
Yeah.
got insurance, they can get money and rebuild it. Like, don't go saying, oh, she will want this to be peaceful or whatever. And that what leads me to that is in the movie again, they show that where the police chief goes to the mom of the son that was killed, and people are demonstrating and they're looting and doing some things, and he's like, please go on TV and tell them not to do that, and all of that. Yeah, no. Burn it all down. If
I
I'm
mean,
killed or something happened, do
I like that scene though. I thought that was a great scene because the nephew was so upset, and he
that.
was just like, "No, why are you here? Where were you when we were going through all this? This is a year later, and now that people are protesting, you coming in here acting
And
like you on our
yes,
side."
and I love that part too, because that's really how majority of people are feeling. Like, and it's
Mhm.
that's one thing I did like about the movie, is that you kind of got to see truly both sides of things. So you kind of get to see the victim side. And they try to also show the police side of what happens and what they're going through.
Right.
Um, but the nephew, you like,
I love. But
yes,
I wish
that's
he
why I
would have
want
spoke
somebody
up.
fighting for me like that.
But I wish he would have spoke up on camera because he did that when they were by themselves. But she ended up actually going on
Doing
TV
it.
to really tell people not to burn stuff up, which don't come to me like that. That ain't gonna happen. And
My problem. Do your job. That's all
right,
I would
you
say.
figure it
Not
out.
my problem.
I might feel bad that things are happening because you don't want other people to get hurt because that's what's gonna happen. Is that people gonna be out there rioting and the police gonna kill them or do something to them. So I don't want that to happen. But I'm not going on TV to tell nobody nothing. How about that?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna be like Tamika Mallory and be like, burn it down. I don't care. But when they went on, the cameras came, he was just in the background. I was like, sir, I thought you was gonna
Yeah,
fuck
why
up
you not
in the
speaking up now?
background. But I was like, it's a movie. It's a movie. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and that everybody has a role to play, right? The police feel like they just are supposed to follow a set of guidelines, and then that's it. They can't come out of what that is. Their guideline is, oh, now I need to protect the city. Your son is already dead. The grand jury decided, so that I don't have anything else to do for you. Now I need you to help me do this. And why? Not doing it. So from that, I guess the father and his friends and his cousin and his family come up with a plan to record, to use this film crew to record what they want to do in the jail. I don't know when this happened because we're not a part of that piece, but
So
I thought that
while
was so
we're
interesting.
give me 1 second. So while we're talking, I want to bring up the poster for American Skin so the viewers know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they they devised a plan to kidnap the police chief, and at that point when they told the filmmaker to drive, I was like, I'm not driving nobody nowhere. But I was like I said, it's a movie. So they get to the police station, they shut it down, they got into a whole shootout with the police, and surprisingly nobody gets shot. Nothing happens at that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And so they chained or tied everybody up or handcuffed them places. So they took over the whole place. And then they put the jury, like I said earlier, together with like clerks and then the inmates
Mm-hmm.
and put this man on trial. And then you just see these heated arguments between white officers, black inmates, Spanish inmates, Spanish officers, women officers, and they were trying to break down the different stereotypes of what people have to deal with either being an officer, being a woman, or whatever. And they go back and forth, and basically they just never are able to see eye to eye. It just was like, this is the world that we live in. Your perspective on things is your perspective, and you don't understand my perspective, and we're just going to be talking past each other in every situation. What did you think about that kind of back and forth conversations that they were having with everybody?
I think it was real. It was real conversations that need to happen because we do all have different perspectives on things. And part of the issue is no one wants to truly listen to everyone else and get their perspective. We all become so defensive, right? Because we
Yeah.
think our perspective is the right perspective. That's the only one where that's not true. So I did like the dialogue when they were talking about why they stopped him. So the father was picking up the son from a friend's house in a nice neighborhood, and he did not have a nice car or newer car. And
Right.
so they stopped him because he was speeding. And but they had nothing to justify the backup that he was speeding and what speed limit. And so then it kind of goes through the conversation evolves into, well, we had to stop you because you didn't you didn't belong in the neighborhood. You look suspicious. And why did he look suspicious? Like that whole dialogue. And it comes out to why they really stopped him. And it was unnecessary. Like this young boy lost his life for a bias that this police officer had because they thought, well, this person in this car does not belong in this neighborhood. And unfortunately, that happens all the time. And
But is it a bias that the police officers had, or is this how they are actually trained to police? Because I thought that was a great conversation. It's not just, I personally feel this way, but this is how we stop people. If you see something suspicious, then you stop and make sure that everything is okay.
well, why do they look suspicious? Like there was,
But that's not, I don't think that's just because of me. I feel like that's the way how the force is.
So if there was a white person in that, say it's a predominantly white neighborhood, and there's a white person in a car that's an older car or something, you think they would get stopped too because they look suspicious?
No.
But see, I
But
think that's where the bias part comes. That's where the bias
I
part
know, but
comes.
I'm not saying that there is no bias. I'm just saying, is it just a personal bias or is it a police bias? That's what I'm saying. Because they even mentioned in there about black officers also doing the same thing to black people. You see what I'm saying? And so if you it can't just be a racial thing, only white officers doing it to black people.
Mhm.
If black people are also doing the same thing, black officers are also doing the same thing.
Black people have
So
biases as well. I think it's a combination of both, right? It's kind of like the whole stereotype. If you see something happen one or twice, then you automatically start thinking that it must be this way for everything. Then police trainings and policies may then support that bias that people
right.
have. So, but I think it all still originates with a personal bias that a person may have. Because I think we see all the time in stories where if it was a different race, a person doing something exactly the same,
Exact same.
they won't
Mhm.
do anything. They get away with it. So even if the training told you to do it, then you would treat it. It would be equally
Apply.
done, applied. Thank you. Yes, to everyone, regardless. And I
Mhm.
think that's where your biases come in there.
Yeah. So I loved all the conversations, but it's just kind of something that reminds me that I don't even know how we even go past this. That's the sad part about this whole thing. Is that yeah, you can feel the way you feel, I can feel the way that I feel. What's our common ground? How do we fix this? What do we do to move forward? I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think the movie was it was like a think piece, right? It was just something to kind of just start a conversation among people. There's no answer to it. And I know I want to be respectful to police and knowing they have a hard job, and a lot of times they do have a split second to make a decision on certain things. So I think the film kind of by having the discussion from both sides allows people to truly kind of see what each party is going through and their thought process about things.
Yeah. And then the ending happened the way I thought it was going
Yeah, I was not surprised about the ending, which is basically so he does end up releasing all the hostages. He is
to.
walking.
So the jury finds the
Oh,
officer guilty,
yes,
right? And then he's made to call his family, and they put the father of the kid Kajani puts a gun to his head like he's gonna kill him. He has to call his family and kind of say goodbye, and then there's no bullets in the gun, but he still pushes the trigger, and then that whole thing happens. And then sorry, go ahead.
well, actually, I'm glad you said that because then going back to the jury, they kind of had a hung jury at first, and the young filmmaker ended up becoming the 12th juror. So something happened, the 12th juror had to leave, and so the filmmaker becomes the 12th juror, and he gives the deciding vote. And his speech was basically, and you watched it more recently than me, so correct me if I say anything wrong, but he basically was saying that he was sympathetic to both sides because he was a young black male living in this world and has experienced so many things that has happened, and then he comes from a family of cops, so then he knows and relates to that part as well. But he was for finding the police officer guilty, and I believe he said because he thought if this could maybe prevent future killings, then maybe this was worth it. So because then it would maybe have cops stop to think before they act in moving forth and doing certain things. Is that what you remember?
Yeah,
Part of his speech.
yeah. Basically, he was just conflicted, which
Hmm.
is everybody's conflicted. It's like you don't. if you want to support the police, but you also don't want people just, you know, killed for reasons that don't make sense or for reasons that other people, other races don't get killed for. You want things to be fair and balanced and have justice, but how do you get both? How can we support the police and also get justice at the same time?
Yes.
But it was like, to me, if the whole premise was this officer is on trial for doing this thing, then there's not that big of a conflict. Like, did he break the law in shooting someone in the back who was unarmed? I don't think that there's a big conflict there because you're an officer. He was running away from you, basically, or attempting to run away from you. You shot him 3 times in the back. It's black and white to me. I don't even care why you stopped him, if it was bias there. That's all a part of it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But when you break it down to what actually happened, were you in the wrong or not?
Yeah, he had no weapon. He had a phone, which was visible. The police
The
officer knew
entire
he
time.
had the phone in his hands the entire time. So it really was no reason in the movie for him to shoot him. But usually the defense is, I feared for my life, and that is enough. That is
But I just don't, because I mean, you have dash cam, they probably have body cam. I mean, he was filming, so they have that footage. So I thought it was going to be, because they didn't show the whole scene until later on in the movie. Like at the
mhm.
beginning, they just show pieces. So I thought it was going to be more of that on the line. Like, man, if he didn't, like, maybe he went in his pocket, or maybe he was about to do something, or maybe he did kind of, get scared and, like, run towards the officer. But none of that was true. This was like clear, clear, clear that you shouldn't have shot him. You
Which
know,
actually I think was an important part of why when he had the jury, it was a jury of his peers, right? And the cop was like, "That's not my peers," and he's like,
right,
"Well," because normally a
right,
lot of times there's not a jury of the defendant's peers,
right,
and
right.
so that shows sometimes why things can be is not fair, I guess I would say, and probably another reason why the grand jury did not vote to indict that cop in the movie, and also in real life sometimes that
Yeah.
probably is what happens. So we need more people like us to serve on juries, and they can have a say. It is
I'm that's a conflict because a lot of people don't want to do it.
they
They
don't
don't pay you enough per day, and it takes up your entire day, and then you don't know how long you're gonna be stuck. So people think about convenience rather than, if you were in trouble and you needed a jury trial and nobody that looks like you wants to sign up,
mm-hmm.
then who are we stuck with? We stuck with the old little white ladies at home that don't have nothing to do and is okay with serving on the jury. So that's always a conflict with me too, because I was like, I want to get out of here, dude. But if you really think about it, we need more of us to
To,
serve on the jury
yeah,
in order to have these fair and balanced, um, verdicts. You know, so
right.
I agree with you on that. So, like we were saying, the ending was not surprising. He let everybody go. Nobody on the police officer side got shot or anything happened to them. The inmates all went back to jail, which I was like, what? He ain't let none of these people
Right.
out.
Well, one did try to escape for
He tried. I
something.
was surprised it took that long that man to try to escape.
I
And
know.
or he didn't even try to escape. He was just mad that he got beat up
Yeah.
by that guy. So and he put everything kind of back in order, sort of. And then he came out and he got killed. So we knew that was coming. So
Yeah, that is surprising ending. But
yeah,
okay, well, if you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. Let us know your thoughts. Come back and leave comments. The other movie we want to discuss is One Night in Miami. What did you think about that one, Lori?
So One Night in Miami is not my typical movie that I watch. I don't have the full name. Do you have all the names of the
Yeah, yes.
characters?
So One Night in Miami is about Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke all meeting up in Miami and talking about life during the 60s. I think this is like the late 1960s.
It's
Um
1964.
1964.
But I
Muhammad
wanted
Ali just
the
had a
names
fight.
of. Do you know the names of the characters? The people that played
The actors that
yeah,
played
the
them.
actors.
I'm only familiar
Yeah.
with two. Aldous um
Hodge?
Hodges, I believe. Yeah, he played Jim Brown, and
Mm-hmm.
then um Sam Cooke,
Leslie? Leslie Odom?
Leslie Odom. Yes, those are the two I was familiar
Junior?
with.
Yeah, I should have looked up because I like the guy that played Muhammad Ali. I thought he was really good.
He was
Um,
good.
and then I don't know the guy who played Malcolm X. I'm sorry. So go ahead with the recap.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
Go ahead with the recap. I thought you were
Oh,
doing it back.
I was stopping sharing. Um, yeah, so the four of them are meeting up in Miami and they're discussing what's happening during the time. Muhammad Ali is actually about to announce that he's converting to become a Muslim. So he still clashes Clay at the time, actually,
Mm-hmm.
in during the movie. Um, they show at the beginning each person, kind of like what they're going through, where they're at in time.
Mm-hmm.
And the one part that stuck out with Jim Brown for me,
Oh,
like the first scene when they introduce him, he's I guess he's from Georgia, island, because they reference the island being back on the island in Georgia. And he goes to this big house and he's meeting up with this white man who I thought maybe he was like a former coach or something. I wasn't really
yeah,
sure who he was, but he
yeah.
was so excited to see him come back to the city, and he's talking to him about his stats and how many yards he ran that season and things like that. They're sitting on the porch about to drink some lemonade, and the white guy's granddaughter comes out and reminds him that she needs him to move something. And this is like a older man, and so Jim Brown is like, "Oh, I'll help you," and the man was like, "Oh no, we don't let niggers up in this house." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
I was done. I was like, this what kind of movie this is going to be? I can't take it. I can't take it. I was just like,
But
it was such a nice, serene conversation. You thought this guy had his back. He was like, anytime you need me, blah, blah, blah. And then he says that. And I was just like, what the hell?
I feel like it was one of those things that no matter how famous you get, how much money you get, you still and we know that from who's that, Kanye or Jay-Z? Someone of them has that line right about that. You still an N-word. So that was like a whoa, okay, that's what this movie is going to be about.
Yeah.
Um,
So I was like, oh no, I can't take it. I mean, that was probably the worst part of the movie for me. And of these four celebrities at the time, I think he's the only one that's alive right now. So
yeah,
I'm sure, well, I don't know. I heard that this movie was based on a play.
it is. It's based on a play. So
So
it's
I don't know when that play was made. So maybe Muhammad Ali was still alive to get some of the facts of this. Um,
well, it's not factual. It's just, the meeting occurred, but the writer is just how they think this conversation went.
oh,
So
so you don't think they talked to any of these people? Well, not because Malcolm X and Sam Cooke died in that same decade.
I don't
So,
know, but I don't think it's necessary just based on
okay.
it's a play based on just that one meeting. It makes me think of the movie that recently came out on Netflix, the Ma Rainey, which was a play based on her going to record. I mean, I don't think um when the playwright wrote that, August Wilson, that he had a conversation. It was just he made up in his mind what he thinks the what's
Oh,
happening there. But I don't
oh,
know. Maybe I didn't do the research on that. Maybe we should have did more
mhm.
research. Um,
Sorry, this is just us watching a movie. So, anywho, so they have little snippets of everybody at the beginning, and then they're all meeting. I don't know how to say it. Muhammad Ali. Okay, that's what I know him as. In Miami because he has a fight that weekend or whatever. And so they're staying at well, Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X and Jim Brown are all staying in the Hampton House Hotel, Hampton Hotel. And so it's actually in Miami. I need to go by and see it. But they're staying at which is like the Black Hotel, and Sam Cooke is in the Fountain Blue with his I don't know if that was his wife or girlfriend, and he's staying over at the Ritzy place, but he's bored because all the people are at the Hampton house. So they go to the fight, and then after the fight, they meet up together to celebrate the win and just hang out together. And so this is majority of the movie is them being back at the hotel in Malcolm X's room, just talking and going back and forth about different things.
yeah, and this is where, like I said, it's not your typical movie. It's I think I've seen with the Ma Rainey watching that too. When and Fences, when they take things that were plays and then make them into movies,
Mm-hmm.
it's different. It's not how you think a normal movie would flow. So a lot of it is contained into one or two scenes, or not scenes, but areas,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, sets, I guess, maybe the proper word to use. So they're mainly in this hotel room talking the whole time. So it's not a lot of movement. Um, they're talking about basically their place and what each of them are contributing to
Mm-hmm.
that time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it was a good conversation to watch, and especially if you're not from or know much about, say, the civil rights era, and almost the responsibility that each person and as a celebrity had to kind of speak out on equalities and things like that. And I think that's where some of the conversation was about, especially when Malcolm X was getting on Sam Cooke. So in that scene, he was talking to him about, you're making music, but what are you saying? Why you're not really putting a message out? And he references Bob Dylan's song that was released, and Sam Cooke's like, don't how do you know I don't have any songs and I don't want to do this and that? And he really, Malcolm X was just trying to push him to say that he had a voice and to use his voice, use his skill to try to say something in what was going on. And so later, that leads to A Change Is Gonna Come, the song that I think probably most people know Sam Cooke by. I
Yeah.
think I read that it is the unofficial song of the civil rights era.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they performed that later. And Leslie Odom, I know him from Hamilton. He starred in the original cast of Hamilton. So he sings. I've heard him listening to the soundtrack, his voice, he sounds so much like Sam Cooke in the movie when he was singing. I watched a TV clip where some of the actors were saying they didn't even realize that that was him singing. They thought it was old
The original song.
originals, yes, old songs from Sam Cooke, but he was able to imitate basically his voice. But he's a really good singer, and he did a. I think they all the actors did a good job in
They
playing
did. I played
each
that
character,
too.
but for me, Muhammad Ali and um the guy who played Muhammad Ali and then Leslie Odom playing Sam Cooke stood out the most for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and they had the most. Well, Malcolm X, I guess, had a big piece too. Jim Brown didn't have that big of a speaking role, right? But I was gonna say I didn't know that A Change Gonna Come. came out or was officially released after Sam Cooke died. I thought he was
I
alive
didn't know
for
that
that.
either.
I looked it up, Joe. So I was like, oh, so he didn't even, for a song that has lived on for so long, I'm just surprised that it was released after he died because that happened in 1964. He died the next year. I thought
Oh,
that was interesting too. So I guess when he was about to kind of change his career and maybe sing more songs like that, that's when he died.
mm,
So,
tragic.
well, he was killed, but he died.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
I was looking for more from Aldous Hodges. Um, because I like him. I became a fan of his from watching the TV show Underground.
Mm-hmm.
That was on a few years ago. He played a slave called Noah, and he was so good in that. So I've seen him in
I
a
like
couple other
him.
things, and I liked him. He just didn't stand out. Maybe I don't know the writing, the it just wasn't enough scenes for him, but he just kind of was in the background a lot for this
Because
movie.
he wasn't, it wasn't his argument. He wasn't a part of it. It was like he was the one to kind of break up the the fight or the disagreement, and that was really it. This whole thing was about Sam Cooke and Malcolm X. And then Muhammad Ali, I thought was gonna have a bigger piece, but he was more like just talking about how he was nervous, but I don't think he had that big of a piece either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In
I
terms of
do
his,
like I did like though I guess the messaging behind Jim Brown, which I didn't know until watching the movie, that he retired from football early and prime in his career because he wanted to do movies, and a movie he was shooting um ran behind schedule, and it was leading up to training camp, and he wasn't going to make it in time, and the owner of the Cleveland Browns, the football team that he was playing for at the time, was basically like, you need to get back here. I'm gonna fine you $100 a day until you get here. And to me, it was almost like that slave owner mentality of,
like today.
you need to get back here and you need to
Yeah.
work. What I say goes. And Jim Brown was like, no, I retire. If you're gonna treat me and say that, no. And so he retired from football and had an acting career. I think I read he starred in like
A long
66
one.
movies. I remember
Yeah.
him from Mars. Did you ever see the little movie called Mars? Oh,
I looked up all the movies. I was like, I ain't never seen not one of these movies. And he's still making movies in the 2000s.
no, is he
He's
okay?
still in there. I mean, not as a huge character, but
Yeah, but
that
so
that was his second career. Like I'm doing this.
right. And I think that was part of his message of, one, you do not own me. And two, I need to do what's best. I read the letter he wrote back to the owner, which
Yeah.
was, I need to look out for me and my, he said, my race, but also my family. Like, football is not gonna last. And they were not making millions of dollars back then like football
No.
players are now. So, one injury and that would have been his career. So he was thinking about the future, and he enjoyed acting, and he was like, I'd rather focus on that, especially if you're gonna try to act like you the slave owner, slave master, and get me to come back and work. So I did like that message, and it's not a message, but just to see him be powerful in that and know that his worth. And I think that was important to mention in the show, in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was all good. I loved that they all had different ways to support themselves and support the Black community at that time. I I was looking at it like it looked like Malcolm X was very frustrated because he felt like everybody should be using their platform
Mm-hmm.
kind of the way that he wanted them to use their platform. And I was thinking, why would that be? And I think that's because the rest of them had like a talent. Like they had boxing, football, singing. And Malcolm X was more of a, like, his whole personality was the movement. So there wasn't like a secondary to anything. So everybody else had a dream, they did their dream, and then speaking out about the civil rights was like added on to. But he didn't have anything else like that. It was all the movement. And I don't think he understood that sometimes your talent is what you lead with first. And that's you want that to go so well. And then you'll add in the other piece. So I don't know if he was able to understand that they're doing it, but this is their dream. This is what they kind of move forward with first before looking out for everybody else, I guess.
Yeah. And this was
So
also during the time where he was about to leave the Nation of Islam.
mhm.
So he probably, like you said, was trying to use them as a means to get
Yeah,
his own message out as well,
yeah,
and to encourage them to speak out, but also through them he could also get his own message, because he was shortly going to be out of the Nation of Islam and he wouldn't have as big as a voice as he had previously.
right.
So almost to in giving them the baton to saying, okay, I'm not going to be able to speak out as much like I used to.
True.
I need you guys to see the power that you have and to speak out on behalf of everyone else, the voiceless, because you do have the platform. You're a singer, you're a boxer, you're a football player. People are watching you, and use that to speak out with what's going on. So,
Right. But then Malcolm X is like an antagonist, and he doesn't realize everybody else can't be like that
yeah,
because you rubbing everybody the wrong way. You know what I mean? And even Muhammad Ali, he had that spiciness, but you could kind of do that as a boxer because you don't have a team. You don't really have to speak with anybody else. They either come get beat up or not. But if you're a singer, you're trying to get into the what is it, the copa,
Coco
the
Cabana.
copa, like nobody gonna let you up in there if you over here talking about these white people are devils. And then Jim Brown, he's a football player with a team, so it's like you kind of have to tread the line a little bit if you want to fulfill your dream and then have a platform to use it. If you burn your platform, you ain't nobody's gonna listen to you no more.
Yes.
So it's a little bit different. Like he'll go out and just call people all kinds of crazy stuff, and that worked because that was his whole world,
But
until
it was a needed piece. I think,
oh
everybody,
yeah,
every player in that time was needed, from him
mhm,
to even the from Malcolm X to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like,
right.
we all needed them, um, to get us to where we're at, but we still have more to go.
Oh, we got place to go.
So yeah, so okay, we hope that all the viewers will also go and check that out. That One Night in Miami is on not Netflix, on Prime,
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime,
Mhm.
and it was directed by who, Lori?
Miss Regina King, and she is our queen of the week.
Week, week, week. There she is.
Yeah, look at her. Fabulous. I love it. So, Miss Regina King, born in, I don't know if she want me to tell you her birth year, so I'm get past that.
Just turned 50, and she was celebrating it all on the news. I think
Okay. All
it's
right. So she's an American actress and director and recipient of several awards, including an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and 4 acting primetime Emmy Awards. The most for an African American performer. And Time Magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2019. So she's definitely influential to us. We're so excited for her directorial debut in film. And it was an awesome movie, very worthy of the times that we need to watch and learn our history and know how to move forward and what's going on in this world. And it was a beautiful film. And we just crown you the queen of the
yay! Congratulations.
week. So we lost a legend this week as well, because usually we end on a high note with the Queen of the Week, and it is high. But we also wanted to give a memorial and reverence to Miss Cicely Tyson.
Yes, Cicely Tyson was born in East Harlem on December 19th, 1924, the youngest of three children of William and Theodosia, also known as Frederica Tyson, immigrants from the Caribbean island of Nevis. After graduating from Charles Evans Hughes High School, Cicely became a model, appearing in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and elsewhere. In 1940s, she studied at the Actors Studio, and she also helped found the Dance Theater of Harlem in 1968 after the assassination of Dr. King. In 1972, in a film called Sounder, she found that what she was looking for, a leading role with dignity. The story in Sounder is a part of our history, a testimony to the strength of humankind, Miss Tyson told the New York Times after receiving rave reviews and an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Our whole Black heritage is that of struggle, pride, and dignity. The Black woman has never been shown on the screen this way before. Miss Tyson eventually appeared in 29 films, at least 68 television series, miniseries, and single episodes, and 15 productions on and off Broadway. Miss Tyson found suitable television roles as Kunta Kinte's mother in the miniseries based on Alice Haley's Roots in 1977, as Coretta Scott King in the 1978 NBC miniseries King about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s final years, as Harriet Tubman, whose Underground Railroad spirited slaves to freedom in A Woman Called Moses, and as a Chicago teacher devoted to poor children in the Marvel Collins story. Her later television roles included that of Ophelia Harkness in a half dozen episodes of the long running ABC legal drama How to Get Away with Murder, for which she was nominated repeatedly for Emmys and other awards for Outstanding Guest or Supporting Actress. In her career, she won 3 Emmys and many awards from civil rights and women's groups, and at 88 became the oldest person to win a Tony for her 2013 Broadway role in a revival of Horton Foote's The Trip to Bountiful. At 93, she won an honorary Oscar and was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 2018 and into the Television Hall of Fame in 2020. She also won a Career Achievement Peabody Award in 2020. In 2016, President Barack Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. And in November 2018, a month before turning 94, she received an honorary Oscar. Ms. Tyson noted, "We Black actresses have played so many prostitutes and drug addicts and housemaids, always negative," she told Parade magazine in 1972. "I won't play that kind of characterless role anymore, even if I have to go back to starving." Ms. Tyson died on January 18th, 2021, at the age of 96. And so we want to thank her for what she provided to the culture and the life that she lived. 96 years old. That is amazing. So, in her memory, we dedicate this show to her. So, thank you again for watching and checking us out today. If you have not, be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And again, you can find us on Instagram at the Coily Crowns. So be sure to leave a comment, chat with us, tell us what you think of the show, what topics you want us to cover. Let us know. Before we end, we also want to remind you to do what?
Always remember to protect your throat.
See you next week.